Today on Locked On Canadiens, we talk Canadiens injury news, we preview the Ottawa Senators, and we have a fun idea for what celebrity should own what hockey team, starting with the Montreal Canadiens, and that's all coming up on today's Locked On Canadiens.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 746 of Locked On Canadiens. And we thank you for making us your first listen of the day wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are free and available everywhere. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined by Scott Matla, the wonderful and talented Scott Matla, also known as the guy you yell at just because he posted a GIF on the internet. Scott, how are you doing today?
Surprisingly, with all the chaos of Monday night's Habs Flames games, my mentions were mostly calm, except for the person asking about the NRA, which I think was a bot. So good work there, Elon, as always. But I'm good, but also dreading Wednesday night because it is the first Ottawa Senators regular season game of the year. And as our friend Kay put it on Twitter, it's about to be a mid-off between two very, very aggressively okay teams on Wednesday night.
See, my thing with the Ottawa Senators is that they should be better than they are, and so they are dramatically underperforming. Although I don't necessarily think that they were ever meant to be an elite team. I thought they would be a bubble Detroit team, a team that took steps in the off season to get better. I guess we're doing the preview first. We'll do Canadiens injuries in the second segment. That was not the way this was supposed to go. But since we started talking about the Ottawa Senators, and we love a chance to talk about the Ottawa Senators, like I really, truly, I thought they won the off season with that DeBrincat trade and signing Claude Giroux. Oh my God, I'm turning into that person. His name is Claude Giroux. So he, he was one of the prize free agent signings. Obviously, he is on his on the downward trajectory in his career. Like there was no denial about that, right? Like the way the Senators went about it, like knowing what he's capable of, knowing that there's a ceiling to what he's going to bring, but like assessing that value accurately and enticing him. I thought that was a big win. The DeBrincat trade, I thought that was a win. I thought, they've got a lot of prospects. We've talked about this. They've got a lot of prospects. They've done relatively okay with their pipeline. I mean, obviously, we have a lot of questions about the way they've drafted in recent years. But, this was a team that was supposed to be a little bit better at this point. They certainly put in the effort. And then they went on, I would say, a not great trajectory out of the season. They at one point, I can't remember the losing streak, but at one point I literally looked at that and I was like, this is the definition of a lost season. And we were still like pretty early on, like it was way before American Thanksgiving, which is when you can kind of solidify what's what, right? And so they are kind of riding the ship now, but it is a lost season. Like they've lost too many games to really put themselves in a good position going forward. And I think that this is ripe for the Montreal Canadiens falling flat on their faces against a team that I really hate losing to. But I do have hope that under Martin St. Louis, and given that the Ottawa Senators won every preseason game against them, that this is going to be one of those where the Canadiens will come back. They will beat the Ottawa Senators. I want that faith. I want to feel positive about it. And I have talked for 4 minutes without giving Scott an opportunity to weigh in on his feelings about the Ottawa Senators. But I guarantee you, they are no more positive than my feelings.
My thought with this is that the Senators, like you said, put themselves in a hole early on in the season. They are 7th in the Atlantic, 4 points behind the Canadiens in the same amount of games played. They were supposed to be better than this. They are 6-3-1 in their last 10, and they have won 2 games in a row. But Tim Stützle exited their last game with an upper body injury. It says he's a game-time decision on daily faceoff, but they are also in their team missing Josh Norris. They are missing Artem Zub, Matthew Joseph, and Jacob Bernard-Docker are all out. That means their current top pairing is Thomas Chabot, who is very good, and Nikita Zaitsev, who is very not. It is Jake Sanderson, who is their young, hotshot rookie defenseman, paired with Travis Hamonic, who is
not.
Travis Hamonic. Eric Brandstrom, a young, exciting puck-moving defenseman that the coach doesn't seem to like, is paired up with Nick Holden. It is what it is. This is a game that is very winnable for the Canadiens. Their bottom six can be exploited if the Canadiens have their ish together, basically, here. Tyler Mott, Rourke Chartier, Parker Kelly, Derek Brassard, Mark Kastelic, and Austin Watson is not an NHL bottom six. There are at most 2, maybe 3 regular NHL players in that. And if Stützle can't play, that weakens their lineup a little bit more. I'm very interested to see what Canadiens team comes out, because Calgary's defense and goaltending was very, very good on Monday night. If the Canadiens come out of the gate like they did, especially Josh Anderson, who should be getting up for a game like this is right up his alley. You're looking at a much different game, because Cam Talbot and Anton Forsberg are not Jacob Markstrom in terms of overall quality. And I think the defense and everything is there to be exploited. And to be quite honest, I don't think the Senators have it all put together quite yet. Their power play, still very good. It's 6th in the NHL, so do not take penalties. But their penalty kill is middle of the road. Actually, dead middle of the road. There is an opportunity for the Canadiens to kind of get their offense lined up here in an order. They can score goals, but can they score enough to outscore the Senators is going to be interesting. And of course, we all know this game's going to devolve into something stupid, because Arbor Jacki is playing. And for whatever reason, they are still very mad at Arbor Jacki. And despite watching him ragdoll Zach Cassian and others, they're going to try and get under his skin in this game. Stay out of the box, and you will be just fine in this. Just like the Oilers game, stay out of the box, and you will probably do just fine against the Ottawa Senators. That's the key to this game. Be smart, score plenty of goals. Don't go to the penalty box. Don't give them life, because the Senators thrive on that. You give them an inch and they take it a mile. And we saw it against the Canucks. The Canadiens aren't great defending that. So throw all logic and reason out the window. But I think this should be a game the Canadiens should win. Even if it is close, this should be a win for Montreal.
Right, and that's the thing. And before we move on to our next segment, the last thing I'll say is that's the problem with Ottawa is their top six, right? Like, you can't give them any opportunities, because they will absolutely capitalize. I like when the Canadiens do that to other teams. I do not like when teams I hate do it to the Canadiens. So that is, you can't give them any opportunities, because they're going to exploit it. So that to me is like, that's the thing. So these games always devolve into something that ends up, we end up talking about it for 3 weeks. I would prefer not to do that. So I hope that the game goes, relatively event-free. No, high event hockey, but no shenanigans. That's what I would like from this game. In the meantime, we want to talk about the Canadiens injury news, which we were supposed to do off the top of the show. We'll talk a little bit about Sean Monahan, how Cole Caufield is probably going to play, and we'll talk about that in just one moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. And BetOnline.net, as you know, is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, analysis, whatever it is, you name it, we've got it. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball, World Cup, even esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, because I know you do because you're listening to this one, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So you can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Scott, where the game starts for the Canadiens is their injury report right now. We've got some news from today. We know that Sean Monahan is going to be out. How long, you said? I'm sorry. Scott did the injury report before we started recording. I didn't take the notes as I usually do. And now I'm like scrambling. So we know that Hoffman's going to be out.
No, so Sean Monahan is out. He and David Savard are both out 2 to 3 weeks and are going to be evaluated as they go. Cole Caufield was cleared. He was mostly pulled for precautionary reasons in the Calgary game, which a rare round of applause for the Canadiens training staff for using caution in something here. So Caufield, by all accounts, should be good to play unless there's some kind of setback today. And it does stink because I think Sean Monahan is a key part of this team that helps it function in the way that their middle six is kind of set up here. So losing him does sting a little bit. I would like to have him for this Senators game because I think he's the perfect guy to exploit, their bottom six if he was given the opportunity to do so. But, not everything can be perfect. And in terms of AHL things, the news isn't super great out of there. Justin Barron is able to play, but he's nursing a small injury. Caden Primo is out, still being evaluated. Dominic Martel is being evaluated day to day. Xavier Simoneau is not likely to play anytime soon, and neither is Jan Mysak, who is out 8 to 10 weeks. The injury bug has hit at a very, I want to say, poor time for the Canadiens. The Lions in the ECHL are down to 10 healthy forwards. The Rocket have 12 healthy forwards, and the Habs have 12 healthy forwards. We are like one injury away from just catastrophic failure down the list of things here, but I would rather they go through the injuries early in the season than later on when you need younger guys to be stepping in and playing and the opportunities there. Get these out of the way now. And if they lose games, they lose games. They're not meant to. The David Savard thing is what it is, because I think the defensive groups that were together last night, minus some foibles from Caden Gooley and Joel Edmondson, played well. Jordan Harrison, Jonathan Kovacevic played well. Weidman and Jack-Eye played well. And I think Edmondson and Gooley will come around at some point. But the Sean Monahan news does sting a little bit. It's not too serious that he won't be able to play, but I do think they're going to miss him. And we are very, very grateful that Cole Caufield appears to be in the clear, since we know how much of this Canadiens offense runs through him on a regular basis.
I'm also just glad for Cole Caufield because he was on the verge of an opportunity, right? I know that it's often unsustainable when somebody is this good in the first half of the season and they tend to cool off in the second half of the season. Statistically, that's just the way it is. That's why if you have on a fantasy team, you have somebody that is amazingly overperforming, trade them at high value in the middle of the season because they're usually going to fall off a cliff. It's very rare that somebody will sustain that for the entire season. And it's same on the flip side of that, like if we saw last year, Cole Caufield, no goals in the first half of the season. Literally one goal in that, this is kind of like how I base my fantasy decisions, but it's because there's a reason behind it, right? Statistically, it's usually impossible for this to happen. But I think that it's possible that Cole Caufield's natural shooting percentage is a little bit higher than the average. And I think that he's like, I don't know how many times he's going to have this pace, right? I don't know how many seasons he's going to have this pace. What if they split him up from Nick Suzuki? What if, their chemistry gets figured out by the rest of the league? What if the Canadiens never get secondary scoring and that is the team that is the line that everybody tries to contain? There's so many things at play here. And people like to over emphasize the contract year as a reason. I don't think this is just a contract year thing. I think Cole Caufield loves being good at hockey. I think he's very much like Martin St. Louis, underestimated, not given enough credit, had to claw his way, has the talent, has the work ethic. I think he's always going to be trying this hard. I think he's always going to be working this hard. But I think the fact that he's in a contract year, I feel like he's not going to get an opportunity like this again. And I really want him to have that. I really want him to have that shot at 40 goals. That's what I really, really want for him. So, yes, I was very worried that he was injured from a team perspective and from a person perspective. I didn't want him to have a concussion, obviously. But I think for his career too, I was really, really worried that he wasn't going to be able to play a lot of games, or like he was going to be out for like anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, right? So this is a good news. We're going to knock on wood that it was precautionary reasons. I'm glad that that's how they're treating their stars. They should be treating all of their players like this. They should be ensuring that people don't play injured, because we saw what happens when people do that. And so I'm just glad. Do we have any more injury things to report, or can we move on to the fun segment?
We can. I just wanted to touch on something that you were mentioning with like Caufield and the shooting percentage. I think that the revenge tour thing is very real. I think Caufield looks at last year as a disappointment, considering how much he scored in the second half of the season under Martin St. Louis. I think he looks at his struggles, whether they were coaching inflicted or just the yips or whatever, and he took that personally because he knows what he was capable of at the NHL level. We saw it during that playoff run and everything else leading up to it. And I think this season is just him getting to that level that he could always be at. We know size is not a determining factor of an NHL player anymore. And I think that this is just a lot of, middle fingers to people who doubted him, like you said. And I'm very excited to see how he continues to just make people eat their words. It's one of the funniest things in the world, because every time Suzuki or Caufield scores, there are unsustainable tweets and this and that, and just stop challenging him, because you're not going to win. You're not going to win at this point. Just let it go, honestly.
I love that Cole Caufield is a Montreal Canadian, and like not like any other team. Like he's not a Toronto Maple Leaf. He's not an Ottawa Senator. And speaking of the Ottawa Senators, Ryan Reynolds met with Gary Bettman and Bill Daly today, and we were inspired by this to have a little bit of fun and talk about what celebrities would be great owners for what team, and that's all coming, or what teams, sorry, and that's all coming up in just one moment in our final segment here on Locked On Canadiens. All right, Scott, do we start with the Montreal Canadiens? We said we were going to start with the Montreal Canadiens. Do we want to leave them for last? What do we want to do? We don't have to do all the teams, but let's just do things where like celebrities will suit certain teams.
I think we should start with the Canadiens, because I think there's any number of options for this team, and it's also the one that we know the best. So, of course, we're going to talk about it the most, honestly.
Right. Okay, so the Montreal Canadiens, there are quite a few options here. There are some celebrities that are Canadiens fans. I'm not talking about the people that like will pander and wear a Canadiens jersey when they're like at a concert, performing a concert at the Bell Center. The obvious choice obviously would be Celine Dion, and we wish Celine Dion well in her health. And if you hadn't heard, there's some devastating news about her health, and she's struggling, and so we wish her the best. But she is Montreal. She's Quebec. Well, she's not Montreal. She's Quebec. A Quebec icon. But in the absence of that, we have to do a little bit more thinking. And I think the next logical choice is obviously Viggo Mortensen, who, when he's not one of the directors of hockey scouting on this team, is. I mean, it's not just me, right? Like he does look like Viggo Mortensen.
Who does now?
Bobrov.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, when I think of Viggo Mortensen, though, I just immediately think of Aragorn, son of Arathorn from Lord of the Rings, and it's like I can't not picture Viggo Mortensen as that.
Okay, I was looking at like History of Violence or whatever that movie is.
We are two very different people, apparently. And my other thought is, like, you can pick any number of like, famous people from like pop culture, like Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen are like huge Montreal Canadiens fans. Imagine,
I didn't know this.
Yeah,
is that for real?
Yeah, like, so my thought is, like, could you imagine Gandalf owning the Montreal Canadiens and how dope that would be? Like,
I need to be more of a nerd. I mean, think I'm enough of a nerd to have a podcast.
Just come talk to Jay and myself in the DMs, and we'll get you all like set away and started on that one. Don't even worry about it.
You're the same person. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. So Gandalf owning the Montreal Canadiens. Go on.
Well, my other thought was too, is like, sticking with the original six, if we look at the Bruins and like, besides sending them to the moon, which is what your original plan was. Yes. So
relocate them to the moon.
Yes, but who more perfectly encapsulates the unnecessarily smug attitude of Boston better than Mark Wahlberg?
Ooh.
Owning the
See,
Bruins.
that's very good and very topical. Very topical. But I know I'm trying to think of like the villain that I hate the most right now in pop culture. And it would be too easy to be like, because I'm on a Star Wars kick, right? So like when I say Star Wars kick, I'm watching Star Wars for the first time. I am in fact becoming a nerd, like all of the people on the internet should be. Like it's too easy to say like Darth Vader or somebody like that, right? Or like what's his face? Joffrey was it Targaryen?
He's a Baratheon
He's a
in Game of
Baratheon. Yeah,
Thrones.
yeah, that's the one. But I mean, we know he's a Targaryen, right? No,
Well,
he's
no,
a
he's a
Lannister.
Lannister.
He's a Lannister, right? Okay, sorry.
So many people are getting mad in the comments and they don't even know why because the show hasn't aired yet.
I am really bad at this. I'm bad at nerdery and pop culture. Oh my god! I hope that our nemesis listens to this. And
Because he's gonna get so mad.
he's
Like he's
gonna
going
get
to crash
so
his car
annoyed.
listening to this.
Okay, so the Boston Bruins, whatever the worst villains in all of pop culture are, like those are those that's who should own them. Let's
Yes.
do the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're Thanos.
I mean, yeah. I'm trying
This
to
isn't even
think of
celebrities. This is characters.
I'm trying to think of something that, always gets people's hopes up and then falls flat because it's, someone else built. Oh, they can be owned by Elon Musk because he's just going to take credit for all the work that, the previous ownership group did. And then it's going to crash and burn and everyone's still going to praise him for it because
Okay,
that's how the fandom works.
I think that's great.
I do have one. It's not for an original 16, but it is for an Atlantic Division team. And the Florida Panthers, who are probably mostly pretty dirt cheap despite being good, can be owned by Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Ooh,
I
explain
mean,
the
he
reasoning.
played football at Miami when he was in the
Hmm.
NCAA, and he spent a lot of time there. And I think he has one of his houses is there when he's not filming movies or making tequila or working out or whatever it is.
Or eating 28 eggs in one day.
I mean, who among us at this point eating a stack of pancakes that is 7 feet tall? But I think him owning the Florida Panthers would help bring that franchise, which has been very good, even more attention out there in Florida. To be quite honest,
I like it. I really like it. All right. The New York Rangers. Who should own the New York Rangers?
anybody but friggin' James Dolan at this point, like. Celebrities who could own the New York, like that's the hard part is because there's so many people in New York City that
That
like
also are fans. They're also fans of the New York Rangers. Like they'll put
I mean, I don't love the Rangers and I don't love Jimmy Fallon. So does that just like kind of tie itself in there and that I don't like both of these people, so they should just kind of be melded together as one thing? Or is
maybe.
Jimmy Kimmel the one who is the Rangers fan?
I feel like isn't Jimmy Fallon a Boston boy or is it Jimmy Kimmel that's one of them's a Boston boy.
I don't know.
Or they went to Harvard or something. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing: is the latest article says Jimmy Fallon fails to chug beer at rowdy Rangers game at Madison Square Garden.
He is a
So
Rangers fan because remember he had that bet with Yuppie?
that I couldn't remember if that was him or Jimmy Kimmel. To be quite honest with
It
you,
was Fallon.
oh well, then yeah, it's Jimmy Fallon because I dislike both of them intensely. So like, I think that's the easiest solution there. And the Islanders can be owned by Billy Joel because it's Long Island. Like you can't not have Billy Joel own the Islanders in that case. Like it doesn't make any sense.
100%. All right, so we've done from the original six, which I know we're branching out a little bit. From the original six, we did Montreal, we did Toronto, we did Boston, we did New York. So we are missing Detroit and we are missing Chicago. So I mean,
Celebrity owner in Detroit. I almost said Kid Rock, and then I realized that Red Wings fans don't deserve to suffer like that. So
I mean, Eminem's a Detroit person.
that was my other thought, but I wasn't sure if that was too obvious or not. But like, I mean,
It'd be funny.
it does make sense, like in terms of like Detroit area musicians. Who invented Chicago celebrities would say who invented deep dish pizza, but like I don't know if they count as a celebrity or not.
Who's the guy, like the super fan, the Chicago Blackhawks super fan? He's an actor. I can't think of his name right now.
Oh no,
my God.
CM Punk can own the Chicago Blackhawks, the professional wrestler.
Okay,
Like,
who was I? I was thinking of Vince Vaughn, but it's like, what's his name? Yes, but no, you're right. CM Punk should definitely own the Chicago Blackhawks.
I guess like let's do the last one here because Vegas has any number of people who could potentially own this team as in terms of celebrities. And we already said Celine Dion is one of the options for the Montreal Canadiens, so Vegas cannot have her for this case. And I'm trying to think of like who is currently very famous on like the Vegas show circuit.
Didn't Adele just start her residency there?
Sure. I'm just typing in Vegas headliners right now and seeing what comes up. And the first thing that popped up was Ray Romano and David Spade at the Mirage. So like I don't think people are gonna want that. David Blaine, like, oh man, wow. Vegas has kind of gone downhill in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Gabriel Iglesias in Vegas. Usher has a residency tour. Chicago. It's not even like Siegfried and Roy can own the team because unfortunately one of them passed away. So like,
are Penn and
okay,
Teller
this is a lot
still
harder.
there? Are they still alive?
I want to say Penn and Teller are still alive. Penn and Teller alive. Yeah, they are both still alive. So you know what? Yeah, Penn and Teller can own the Vegas Golden Knights, and maybe they'll finally tell their social media account to shut up and make them that much more likable.
Maybe they can make them disappear. That would be really funny. And that would be actually like it would be good for humanity. And so this has been Scott and Laura don't know pop culture or are too old or too tired. And give us your ideas. I hope you enjoyed it. We wanted to have a little bit of fun today because the Ottawa Senators, not our favorite team. So this is kind of like what we're doing for this episode. We will be back tomorrow, obviously, with a recap of the Ottawa Senators game, a preview of the Anaheim Ducks game, and whatever else comes up. And don't forget, there is a bonus episode coming this week. In the meantime, please ensure you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And if you are subscribed to us on YouTube, hit that bell so you will get a notification. Also, please like us, review us, tell your friends. If you want people to hear this podcast, share us with people. We love you guys. And if you want to find us on Twitter, we're at LO_Canadiens. You can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can find Scott at Scott Matlaw on Twitter. You can find me at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back tomorrow.